It's very nice to welcome you all here. Everybody will be very pleased to see a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of breeze, and a little bit of sort of chance to dry out, rather than squelching noises that we've had for the past month or so. In a moment, I'm going to welcome Trevor Hamilton to speak. Trevor, after that, Trevor will be very pleased to take some questions, and we're lucky also tonight to have Graham Coates from the Institute of Directors, and Graham will say a few words about the Institute after questions for Trevor. Now, it's a real pleasure to introduce Trevor Hamilton to you tonight. Trevor is originally from Taranaki and is now involved with some substantial farming operations. He's got several farms centred near Rotorua in the North Island and several other farms near Dunsandel in the South Island. He's a very interesting chap, and I can imagine if people were asked to give him a character reference, they would be very happy to confirm he's a character. What makes it quite interesting for us tonight is that Trevor thinks of his business in terms of family, in terms of teams, in terms of managing operating units, and then in terms of governance of the group enterprise. And he thinks of succession as a dynamic and ongoing process, involvement in the business and opportunities going forward, rather than any static end point. He's going to share tonight some personal experience and insights, and I think you will find it interesting because they are the sorts of things that we all here, business people and advisors, grapple with. We do grapple with business, with ambitions for growth, having to manage the organisation. Thinking about governance as a related but separate issue, and in all of that having to develop a succession plan for the business. So with that short introduction, can you all please welcome Trevor Hamilton.
Thanks, Paul. I hope my voice will stick it up because stick up to it because I've had the flu for the last fortnight. But firstly, I'd just like to commend Gasco and Wicks for putting on this tonight, because I think it just shows that they're just stepping outside the normal realms of legal counsel and offering something to clients. So I think, from my point of view, I commend that. Do I know everything about this subject? No, I don't. Really roped into it probably on 2 occasions so far. This will be my 3rd occasion. Really spoke to the Lawlink conference in Rotorua, which seemed to create a bit of a buzz for some reason. And I'll try to deliver the same message here. I'll try to deliver it as openly and honestly as I can. Any questions I'll try to answer in the same manner, because I think it's all about the learnings that we all get from this. So the subject is succession and governance. I think they are 2 subjects, but they're tied together. So if you want a complete succession on a longer term basis, you're going to have to look into governance. So I thought I'd just start off by telling you a little about our business. Consists of 8 large dairy farms, grown substantially in probably the last 12 to 15 years. So if we go back about 13 years, there's 2 dairy farms today, 8 dairy farms. Back then it was about a 300,000 milk solids business. Today it's about $2.5 million milk solids business and about $100 million business, owned 100% by Harriet and I. So unlike a lot of large dairy enterprises that have equity partners, this isn't the case. So it brings about probably the need for governance a fair bit more. So what are some of the biggest challenges the business has faced? Well, I guess as you grow a business fast and you're a husband and wife team, the business issues start to impose in your personal life. And I think one thing that governance does do, it allows you to have the discussions in the boardroom that don't actually encroach in your personal life. So we're probably fortunate that we have 5 children, 4 of which have been attracted to the business. Now, why do you think we've been able to attract those family members to the business? I believe it's because they've seen this business as a profitable business. They realise where mum and dad's come from a nil base, and therefore they're enthused about the business. So going down that road, I believe we've been able to attract them to the business without giving them a sense of inheritance. So for instance, I've got 4 daughters and 1 son. One of the things my son said was, nobody has a right to TH Enterprises business not earned. So we don't believe in inheritance, we believe in earned. Because where are the learnings in inheritance? They simply aren't there. So I think as mum and dad, you always try to make children's life easier. So what we've said to the children is, and this is where governance comes in, so we've only had governance a short time, but where governance comes in is if a family member has some concern, we direct it to the independent. Because I don't believe mum and dad are always the best person to have the discussion with. And so what brings about governance? For us, I guess it was, we were getting to the stage with the bank where we were starting to owe a considerable amount of money, and they started to talk about governance, and so we had to give it some consideration. I don't think we would be able to take the business from a $100 million business to a $250 or $300 million business in the next 10 years, which is the plan, without some sort of governance. Like, I can't see the bank wanting to lend Trevor and Harriet Hamilton $150 or $200 million without some form of governance. So that was part of the catalyst to going down the form of governance road. The other part is, haven't we got some responsibilities? And by that I mean, if you want to take a business over here, you've got to take your responsibilities out there as well. And if you don't believe that, just look at the situation in some high-profile agri collapses that we've seen in New Zealand. South Canterbury Finance, $1.6 billion. How many more South Canterbury finances do you think New Zealand can take? We've seen Crayfish, we've seen the kerfuffle about the overseas investment of the Chinese coming in there. Why do you think that happens? I'll tell you why that happens. Businesses get themselves into a position where they're in need for capital. And they get themselves into a position where they'll need for capital very quickly. They can't source it anywhere else, so they end up selling down the business. And you've seen that with Wrightson's, PGG, and all sorts of other companies within New Zealand. So if you don't like overseas investment, keep the capital base of the business strong. The other thing was, if we wanted to grow this business at the same degree as we've been growing it, then haven't we got responsibilities around who the hell's going to run this business if Trevor and Harriet Hamilton dropped out of the plane tomorrow? Little Johnny, that's 25, down in Canterbury, managing one of the farms? I don't think so. One of the daughters? Currently? I don't think so. So what I'm saying to you, haven't we got some responsibilities around getting formal governance and a succession plan underway for sound, enduring business within New Zealand? Now in our sector, you can almost count on your hands how many successful agribusinesses there are, particularly in the dairy sector. So I thought it's important. I'll just read out our vision statement, because that'll sort of tie in with with what I'm going to talk about. So the vision statement of TH Enterprises is to create a truly multi-generational, family-owned agribusiness, complete with formal governance, producing sustained growth and wealth creation through the leverage of the current assets of TH Enterprises. Our vision is to benefit the family now and into the future through development of education, employment and business opportunities. So if we want to create that, one, we've got to grow our business, but two, we've got to take our responsibilities further. So we say that we've had some interesting discussions recently, because we're finding ourselves in a situation where we're 2/3 of some contractor's income, we're 100% of some grazer's income. We're starting to be significant bill payers with Wrightsons and people like that. So we're having discussions and saying, hang on a minute, we've got some responsibilities to you, but you've got responsibilities to us as well. So even given the size of our business currently, how many people in terms of overall would be affected by the business by having a stuff up of some sort? So we believe our obligations to our family, our service industries, our staff, right up to New Zealand Inc. And I think that when you take that sort of thinking forward, then the business isn't all about you. And why do most people not entertain governance and succession very lightly? I believe no one wants to think of themselves as being terminal on this earth, but we all are. And the other thing is, with governance, people do not want to give away control, particularly if you're the founder and entrepreneur. The last thing you want to give away is control, and you may not want to be involved in disciplines. Now, in my view, if you're setting up a board, the last thing you want to do is clone yourself. So we've got two independents. One is James Lockhart out of Massey, who is very academic orientated. He totally understands family governance. He runs the business executive courses out of Massey. Completely different personality to myself. My wife's very detailed, and we've got Greg Eden out of Stoke Hills Rodway for the innovative financial solutions. So whatever you do, don't go and clone yourself or clone a mate, because a disaster would happen if you had a board full of Trevor Hamiltons. Because all you're going to do is overrun. And so look, whatever you do, look outside that. So I think what some of the key issues to governance and building an intergenerational business is getting the family to understand that the core engine room of the business is not to be challenged. And they're not going to get an inheritance, they are going to get an opportunity. So currently our business sits like this. So we have TH Enterprises up here, and then under here we have 8 companies. And these all sit as individual limited liability companies. The legal profession tend to have favoured trust, which we had one of, we still do. But trust, the Hamilton Family Trust, tends to be around protecting assets rather than a succession plan. And why I say that is because it is very simple to sell down shares to any one of these farming companies under a limited liability company. It's pretty hard to do that through this engine room up here. So we're just in the process of pulling everything down here. So this is a holding company, and these are the farm companies underneath. One other thing we've found that governance is very good at is we have out from here a company called TCH Holdings, which I have a daughter and son-in-law in. Now all I want to say about that is they come from a different culture. Okay? A culture that doesn't align to certainly myself or Harriet. But where it becomes of very much benefit is Harriet and I were directors of this company along with my daughter and son-in-law, but we were having issues. What we did with them was resign as directors and let the independents deal with this. Because guess what it does then? It creates a line between what is business and what is family. That's the beauty of governance. So I have no involvement in this other than expressing Hamilton Family Trust's investment in here. Now another reason I believe is, and you all would have probably seen this, is a typical New Zealand, or a typical company it goes a bit like this. So particularly if you're starting at a nil base, which Harriet and I sold a car for $12,000, it's not hard to plot, but typically it sort of goes like this. And what happens here is probably retirement. So what if we keep it going here? So discussion Harriet and I and Greg and James had was with the family is, okay, here's where we started, here's where we were 10 years ago, here's where we are today, but where do you think we can take the business in the next 10 years we just talked about? And do you want to be part of it? Guess what? 100% buy into the vision. Because they realise, having pursued their own career, now I've got a daughter, I was telling Kay and Paul at lunchtime, I've got a daughter that's been involved in the hospitality industry. Never ever in my wildest dreams did I think they'd go farming. In coordinations in some of the big hotels. She's now feeding 300 calves on one of the farms. So I said to Andrea, I never thought I'd see the day. And she said, shut up, Dad. But you know the good thing is, they've worked out for themselves, the better to be under the TH Enterprise umbrella than not to be. Because we've put the carrot out there with a bit of stock and whatever. So I think that's how you get the family involved. And what you do get with family is you do get what I term ownership buy-in. So they actually realise it's mum and dad's farm and they've got some responsibility. They realise their responsibilities around that. Now what the entrepreneur doesn't like is he doesn't like to be held up by the detail person. Guess what I've got? A very humble and detailed person and a wife, Harriet. So, but what you need for a business is you have entrepreneurship out here on this side, and then you've got systems, process, planning, and what that involves is this person here is very detailed. So if you're very detailed, the last thing you want is another detailed person. You actually might want an entrepreneur. But what the entrepreneur looks for is opportunity, flexibility, innovate, and adapt. So that's what he's good at. But you can't have this one over here without this one. Because if you leave this down here, what then you'll get is sustainable growth.
What was that you just said?
Sustainable growth. So if you have those two, you'll end up with sustainable growth.
Okay.
Now, I think my view is independent directors feel a responsibility greater than if they managed a corporate business, because they understand the family succession issues, etc., that is going on there. So I'll just like to sort of pretty much close off with that.